Texans have a lot of questions at wide receiver. One of the best players/receivers in franchise history is now on the market. The Arizona Cardinals drop a news bomb, releasing DeAndre Hopkins, taking on over $22 million in his salary this season. They're clearly tanking. Should the Texans be bringing back Nuke Hopkins? Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas.
Welcome to the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. And that's where I was. I was live on the air as the news broke that DeAndre Hopkins was being released. And I'll never forget where I was when DeAndre Hopkins was traded. I was on the air as well. And it was one of the wildest chain of events that I can remember as far as reacting live on there. At first, you thought maybe they got a first-round pick. It initially started out as the David Johnson trade. Then you found out what the compensation was. All hell broke loose. And it was the beginning and really the continuation, but the high point of the most idiotic display of football front office work that you'll ever see from the POS, person of service, Jack Easterby, and King Bill O'Brien. And now it kind of goes full circle as people are excited about the Texans, as we have questions about the Texans. DeAndre Hopkins becomes available, and immediately people get excited. Let's be honest. When you bring back familiar faces, people get excited, whether it's D'Amico Ryans as the head coach. Hell, people were getting excited about Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin got a hype video. So if Jacob Martin gets a hype video, of course, people are going to be excited about the possibility of bringing back DeAndre Hopkins. But does it make sense? Should the Texans bring back DeAndre Hopkins? There's a case for and there's a case against. Let's start with the case for. And the most obvious thing, the Texans have a lot of uncertainty at wide receiver. They do not have a number one wide receiver. There's all kinds of question marks. There might be limited ceilings as well with these guys. So the case for is obvious that DeAndre Hopkins is a good wide receiver, and you need help at wide receiver. Hell, you worked out Preston Williams last week. So the case for is very clear. He's a very good player. And it's a position where you don't have a solidified top-end wide receiver. So that's an easy case for. However, there's always different reasons, different variables. Sometimes situations aren't lined up. The case against is not too difficult either. You're in a different stage of your organization than a lot of the teams that you see connected to DeAndre Hopkins are. A lot of these teams that we've talked about all offseason, and hell, he's talked about. He was with the Arizona Cardinals, and he was making a media rounds talking about where he wanted to be. You're not just a wide receiver away. Furthermore, he has played just 19 games the last 2 years. I know he got suspended for the Peds, but he's been banged up. He's 31 years old. You don't know how the game is going to age. And as much as you have these question marks, you'd kind of like to see how CJ Stroud works with some of these young guys and how he's able to get it ready. Remember, DeAndre Hopkins, one of the biggest knocks against him was that he didn't practice. And I thought Bill O'Brien was overblowing it, especially with the point in where the Texans were at that point. But you kind of would want Nuke Hopkins practicing with CJ Stroud or whoever the young quarterback is. And let's be honest, DeAndre Hopkins is on record saying he doesn't want to do this whole young quarterback thing. Although he shouted out Clayton Tune on the I Am Athlete podcast. I saw JB Anime of ESPN, friend of the show, put that out there. So the case for and case against. Case for, he's a good receiver. You have questions at receiver. Case against, probably just doesn't fit into what your plans are right now. Now let's look at the Texans' point of view, their point of view, the POV for them. Do you want to pay DeAndre Hopkins whatever he's going to warrant? You know he wants a new contract. He always wants a new contract. This is nothing new. Do you want to pay him that? Do you want to bring in a guy who has already on record said that he doesn't want to be in a rebuild? He doesn't want to work with a young quarterback. Furthermore, if you're paying him, I'm assuming that he wants to be paid like an elite receiver. Is he still an elite receiver at the age of 31? He turns 31, I think, next week. Shout out to DeAndre Hopkins. Happy birthday. Do you want to do that? Or would you rather see what these guys got? Would you rather see, even if it's not as high of a ceiling, would you rather see what all of these other receivers that you have that we've listed, would you like to see what they got? Or would you like to just push them back and sit back and watch Nuke Hopkins? Their point of view, it might not make sense. From his point of view, it's not a might. It makes no sense. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. DeAndre Hopkins has been in football hell the last couple of years in Arizona. He said himself that he doesn't want to work with a young quarterback. So from his point of view, at this point in his career, go do what Andre Johnson was unable to do. Go do what J.J. Watt was unable to do. Go find that ring, man. They'll be rooting for you in Houston. Here, it just doesn't make sense. So we will get into the teams that it does make sense for and the teams to look out for with DeAndre Hopkins. But from his point of view, why the hell would he want to come here? I don't think he's at the James Harden point in his career where he just maybe wants to come live in the city. He can live in the city all the time. DeAndre Hopkins, big fan of Grace's. I'm a big fan as well. One of the best restaurants in town out there on Kirby. But from his point of view, why the hell would he want to come here? Makes no sense. Here's where it does make sense. The locker room, DeAndre Hopkins watch list. Number one, Buffalo Bills. There's been a lot of shout outs to the Bills Mafia. Buffalo puts him opposite of Diggs, and they have some other guys that just drafted Dalton Kincaid. Go chase the Super Bowl. Go be a part of that rabid fan base. Buffalo, destination number one. Destination number two, Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has shouted out DeAndre Hopkins. That maybe Baltimore looks to overcompensate for their neglect of the wide receiver position during the Lamar Jackson era. And they just bring in DeAndre Hopkins and bring in all the receivers. And hell, maybe we see him week one with the Baltimore Ravens. And just as importantly, maybe the Browns, who the Texans have their first round pick, maybe they see them twice when maybe the offense is moving a little bit better and ready to go. This one sucks. The Kansas City Chiefs. It always seems like all signs point to the Chiefs. The Chiefs, people want to play there. You want to play with the best quarterback in the game. Kansas City, the wide receiver position, kind of a question mark. Last year they brought in Juju and they brought in Valdez-Scantling. What does Kansas City want to do with the wide receiver position? You always got to look at Kansas City because they're one of the top contenders and they got the best quarterback and people like to play. Number four, Deshaun Watson and DeAndre reunited in Cleveland. Deshaun actually threw this out earlier this offseason. I think it was on Quincy Avery's podcast. Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins in Cleveland, which would be interesting. You'd have Amari Cooper and DeAndre, similar-ish skill sets. DeAndre's probably a little bit better, but not a lot of speed. Although they added Elijah Moore. I don't know how it works in Cleveland, but Deshaun Watson has thrown it out there. Number five, the Jets. Jets would be interesting. I know Nuke kind of likes fashion. He likes the scene. I would love for him to go to a big media market, get some love. Aaron Rodgers was apparently interested in having Odell Beckham Jr. DeAndre Hopkins at this point, a better player than Odell Beckham Jr. You put DeAndre in New York with a team that is looking to contend. He gets to play with the best quarterback that he's ever played with. He's got Garrett Wilson opposite of him. Those two guys complement each other very well. You got a lot of talent in New York. The New York Jets would make a hell of a lot of sense, especially if they were truly interested in Odell Beckham Jr. This is a better version of that. And then LA. Maybe LA with the Chargers. I know their receivers got banged up last year. Maybe they'd like to add some depth. Don't know what that situation is. But that would be the list for me. Buffalo, Baltimore, Chiefs, Cleveland, Jets, LA. Notice I did not put Houston on that list. And we will go back to the original question. And subscribe, like, right along. It is The Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. Should the Texans sign DeAndre Hopkins? The answer is no. It doesn't work from either point of view. You want to get a look at some of these guys and see how it goes down. At this point in DeAndre Hopkins' career, he shouldn't want to be here in the Texans. They got to next year, wide receiver is going to be a significant need, but at this point, you're not a wide receiver away So no, thank you. Maybe they should have drafted someone early, but now that ship has sailed, you're not going to find a number one receiver. And DeAndre Hopkins is kind of on the back end. He's going to want that deal. This could easily backfire if they did it. So I say no. What say you? A lot of passion out there. A lot of fans get excited by the possibility of bringing back DeAndre Hopkins. Put it in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media at Landry Locker, Odyssey app for In the Loop. And there's something I want to touch on before I get out of here, because I keep hearing this and I keep seeing this, that the fact that DeAndre Hopkins just got released is some sort of like validation for the dumbest trade that we've ever seen in Houston. Let's make something clear. That trade was still dumb as hell. It was idiotic. It was moronic. It was stupid. The idea of trading DeAndre Hopkins was not a bad idea. You see wide receivers at that point in their career get traded all the time. Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams. You see that happen all the time, but all of those guys get at least first-round picks and more. The fact that you got a second-round pick and one of the worst running backs in the NFL at the time that was going to get cut, it was idiotic. It was dumb. The philosophy might not have been bad, but when you have two football idiots in the POS, Jack Easterby, and Bill O'Brien running things, it was a dumb trade. So there's no validation here. Now, if they had given him a super deal, a mega deal, and we were a few years into that, then maybe you could say, given the contract, was a bad idea. Arizona's eating $22 million. So maybe that, but again, the concept, fine. The execution was bad. Don't try to validate that trade. That trade was dumb as hell. Subscribe right along. Appreciate everyone for coming through. We are all in this together when it comes to the Texans game. Subscribe, like, right along. Fun times around. No go for me on DeAndre Hopkins. What say you? No matter what, whether they do it or not, we're all in this together. Appreciate you.
Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do.